What's going on, Jerk Faces? It's your boy, Andy, and you're watching Nocturnal Transmissions, brought to you by the Circle of Jerks podcast. It's a conversation you could be having during the day, but having at night. Even though it is nighttime right now, we're not doing this live because it's a pre-tape because I have very inconsiderate family members.
Wow, it's not my fault. Awesome.
Yes, maybe for it happens like maybe once a year. That it's
all right.
It's not Robert's fault, and I guess this is one of those times. But yes, with me, co-hosting this thing as ever is the homeboy Rob.
Yo, what's going on, everybody?
Yeah, we got a good show in store for you guys tonight. A lot of I don't know how would you say it? Criticisms, would you say?
Yeah, I'll say that.
Yeah, criticisms of not necessarily Christianity, but people associated with Christianity who I think Robert would agree take liberties with the faith.
That's a very kind word.
Yeah. I'm using very kind terminology here, but they take liberties with with passages, or they might be put into positions where they don't necessarily, or they're put into positions where they necessarily shouldn't be. And then ultimately it does more damage to I guess the reputation of the church, and then by extension, it does heart damage, but also does damage to the church as well.
Yeah, it's So there's been a lot of that in the news. So we're going to talk about a few stories that we find kind of dealing with this stuff. We'll do the movie review.
Yes. And tonight, the movie review is actually, it was supposed to be the first one we did for this month, but I forget what happened, but just kind of got pushed back.
Yeah.
It's Sunset Boulevard.
That's
it's a classic. If you're not familiar with the movie, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with one scene. But we'll get to that towards the end of the show. Before we get into the main stuff, we'll just take a few minutes to do a little catch up, because I actually haven't seen Robert much since we did the pre-tape last week. And I think the week before. I could be mistaken, but
yeah, it's been a while since we've actually seen each other in person live.
Right. Or no. The week before last, we did that live.
Yeah. Okay, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. So Rob, what's going on?
It's mainly been work. I worked 7 days in a row last week.
7 days in a row?
Yeah. Yeah, Jeez. It was pretty brutal.
Because what was it? Wait, was it that? Or wasn't that the week of Labor Day where a good portion of your office didn't show up for work?
Oh yeah, so there was that. So that was I felt like I worked 7 days in a row that week.
Right.
But then the week after Labor Day, which is I worked 7 days in a row. So it was kind of a little bit tiring, but that's okay. I got through it all right. Other than that, it's just trying to get together some stuff for a trip to China. Although I'm because I'm supposed to have a mandatory week off next month since it's my anniversary for when I got into the post office, and since I didn't get my promotion this year, which is it's still gonna happen, but it's just gonna take a little bit more time.
So it's like it got postponed or pushed back or.
Yeah. It's nothing that like I did wrong or anything. It's just kind of it's the government. It takes time. So it's not like I was kind of like upset about it, but like it's like what can I do, right?
Right.
But
government,
like
always a day late and dollar short.
Exactly. But next month there's a week that I have to. It's mandatory for me to take a week off next month.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure. I'm hoping that I think it's going to get moved up, which is like going to kind of ruin the plans I did have for October, which is I was trying to get to China. So I think that's going to get affected. But I am still planning to do a trip to China, and so it might be that trip might get postponed. So I'm kind of a little bit disappointed about that.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, like things are going okay. I'm just working hard, getting ready to. We're ending our summer break for the main podcast, and I've been working on a couple of guests lined up for us. Get that ball rolling.
Right.
And then my dad was super excited to be on last week with us. He had a ton of fun talking about two of his favorite movies, and he's expressed interest in becoming a guest on the podcast too. So
the main one, right?
Yeah, the main one. Yeah.
Okay.
So he was really happy, excited. Like he watched the whole episode, and he's like he loved it. He had so much fun. He's like, and he was just worried. It's like, did I talk too much? Did I? It's like that was the point. You're
you're the guest. You're the one with firsthand experience. Specifically dealing with like the time frame that those movies took place in. So he was
right.
Your dad was able to give a lot more insight into because like the whole what was it, the Easy Rider, like the whole like American flag on the back of the jacket. Like I don't know about you, but I had no idea that was such a controversy.
Right, and neither did I. And that's so just talking to him about all that stuff, his his experience with motorcycles, the cruising scene.
Right.
He lived it. He did it. So
yeah, exactly.
He kind of knows. He knows like what these characters were going through, like what they were doing. So it's kind of like I could talk about it. I understand that culture. But at the same time, like just having someone who's lived it, I think
right, especially someone who's lived through it, like in the heyday.
Right.
Because even cruising culture from like mid to late '60s to the '70s, '80s, '90s is very different from from the earlier times.
Yeah, definitely.
So, it was really good. Yeah, I really enjoyed having your dad on.
But so he was happy that we asked him to come on, and he had a good time.
I'm glad. I'm really glad. Yeah, he even I think he did he? I don't know if he did, but he might. I think he tagged us in one of his Instagram posts.
Yes, he did.
The Instagram account.
Yeah, he's actually really big on Instagram. Like he does a lot of stuff. Well, because he sells car care products is kind of his side hobby, and so but he's been on Instagram like he's like literally every day for like the last year or so.
Mm-hmm. Word. Yeah, that's cool.
So. How about you, Andy? What you went fishing?
Yeah.
How was that?
No, it was good. Some a few last minute changes happen because usually I go. It's usually the trio of myself, my dad, and my uncle. But the morning that we were supposed to leave, my uncle woke up with this foot pain, um, and because my uncle's much older man, and he has had some health problems, and he's he carries a lot of weight. So I think I just woke up with a lot of foot pain, and we were hoping that uh, after a couple of hours, it would subside, or it would resolve itself, but it didn't. And so he wasn't able to come with us, and so it was just me and my dad. And it was good. It was I had a good time with my dad, even without the buffer of my uncle. And because I was actually because I was actually kind of worried because just being me just me and my dad. I thought we were gonna fight a lot, or he was just gonna yell at me. But it ended up being a really nice time, and we just talked and talked about what's going on in my life, what thing, because I just got a car. He was asking me like what I wanted, to maybe do with it, and so yeah, it was a good time.
Awesome. That's always good.
Yeah.
Although we didn't. You had to fight.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, I think. I guess. I mean, I don't want to trivialize it, but I might have been. I think I might have been part of a miracle. Concerning my dad, because the second day fishing that we did. My line got snagged on some seaweed, and it was like a big patch of seaweed, and so so I was trying to do my best to just kind of to reel in the line and also try to get it unstuck, and I had foolishly let flip the bait runner switch on, which just lets the line kind of go out. But I didn't realize how much tension was on the line when I released it, and it just like zipped. The line just like zipped like half off the spool, and it kind of like messed it up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so like because usually what you have to do is I don't know how familiar our audience is with fishing, but you have a reel, and then you have usually there is some sort of bait runner which allows like the line to just be drawn out, and there's also like kind of this mechanism where it allows the line to go out or be reeled in like more smoothly. And usually you flip that open, and the line will do the same thing as the bait running switch, but I didn't do that, and so the spool just went out too fast, and the entire line got jumbled up, and I was like kind of standing there for a few 10 minutes, trying to ungnarl this mess, and then my dad comes over. And I'm expecting him to yell at me, saying like, basically, call me an idiot. It's like, why did how could you have let this happen? That kind of thing. But miraculously enough, my dad didn't yell at me. Wow. He calmly explained to me. He's like, oh, you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to do the other thing. If you get stuck again, just don't flip that switch. Do this other thing. And then I was like, who that?
Well, who are you and what did you do with my dad?
Well, exactly. That was exactly my reaction, because usually my dad is like, first he'll be annoyed with you, and then he'll yell at you, and then he'll be angry at you.
Yep.
Usually in that order. And but this time my dad showed like a lot of restraint and a lot of I dare say compassion. And he just calmly said, "Hey, next time that happens, do this thing and not the other thing." And that was the end of it. And it was like, I was like, who are you? Like, what? It's like, did I shift dimensions? Am I in an alternate reality?
So yeah, I know that's pretty miraculous. And
yeah. Yeah, for those of you who've never experienced K rage, I think it originated with my dad.
Well, I have a lot of some Eastern European blood in me too, so I get that blood rage too every now and again. So I know what it's similar. I get it.
Yeah.
Especially with some of like the blood I have in me. I don't know what it is, but like you'll get with like other like Eastern Europeans that like are not from like where your family's from. And it's like we just don't get along with each other for some reason. Like, and it's just, God, I don't know. It always seems to happen that way. Like, I don't really get along with too many Russians, or like Slovakians, or any of like kind of that side of Europe. It's weird. It's almost like this weird like weird sixth sense where like we know it's like, oh, you're not one of us. It's just
right.
Butt heads.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's only natural. It's like, especially the kind of aggression you have against seeming outsiders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then again, like I've kind of clung on to the Koreans. I've grown up with Koreans most of my life, and it's like I get it.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not one of you. I'm not one of you, but like I'm with you. Like I get it.
I understand. We're on the same wavelength. But it's so interesting because like it's like my dad is this way, but like I'm not really like that. I do get angry, but it's not to the extent that my my father gets angry. Or at least I think I express it differently.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like my dad is like kind of like volcano, big big pyroclastic and kind of event, whereas I'm just like and you've experienced this before, where I like I want like most people like they associate like anger with like like being hot headed or like kind of heat. I want like my anger to be like like ice.
Oh yeah, I think that's the worst.
Like I would like I don't want to like I don't because I could anyone can just yell and like scream and get red in the face. It's like no, you know what, I'm gonna let you stew in like your own like I'm gonna let you stew in your own like emotions, your own feeling. Like I want you to like stew in your own failure, like and think on like how you like messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like like most people like they like they're like they're like hot tempered and like they want their anger to be like this fiery like eruption. I want it to be like I want my anger to be like a snowdrift.
Yeah, that's exactly what it felt like. God, that day, like when that one time you got really upset with me.
Yeah,
I had both sides of it. Like I had it from you, I had it from that side. It's like there was no winning that day. No matter what I did, I was gonna lose.
Right, you're damned if you did, and you're damned if you didn't.
Exactly. So
yeah, that was your Kobayashi Maru.
Yeah. It pretty much was. God, it sucked. That day sucked.
All right. Let's get into the stories that we have in store. Why don't you start us off with your bit?
Okay, so something that kind of caught my, I mean, there's been a lot of things that have been catching my attention, but this is more recent, and there's been a big trend of people utilizing the Bible. I mean, it's not like it hasn't happened before, but I've kind of noticed it more on like kind of like the mainstream media side where they're utilizing the Bible in a very despicable and dishonest way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the pinnacle of this was everyone's favorite gay mayor from Illinois.
No.
Was
it? Is it Illinois? I thought it was
I think he's from like South Bend.
Right. Is that in Illinois?
Yeah, that's in Illinois. Or okay. No, I'm sorry, Indiana.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah, I knew it was starting with an I.
Yeah. It's one of those fucking I states.
Yeah. Yeah, that includes you too, Iowa.
Yeah. But anyways, our favorite gay South Bend mayor, Pete Buttigieg, and how because he claims that he's a Christian, right. And like I said, I can't necessarily say that is not something that I can judge for myself. But with the things that he says, those things I can judge, and he similar to like how Satan in Genesis kind of tricks Eve by twisting the word God, the word of God just enough to where it sounds like that sounds right. I don't know, that seems kind of odd, and this is exactly what Pete Buttigieg is doing and utilizing scripture in a way to promote this pro-abortion agenda that everyone on the Democratic Party seems to have. But he not only is he saying that like using the Bible to say that to promote that, but he's saying that like any Christian who doesn't believe in this is not really a Christian. It's like, what? It's one of the most despicable, horrible things I've heard in recent memory.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. We were kind of talking about this before the show started, but it's. This isn't. It's not like this is new. A new tactic for them. They misconstrued. God, I should have looked this up too. I forget which amendment it was. Basically, the privacy amendment.
Yeah.
Where they took that and they twisted it to then say, oh, see, the Constitution supports abortion. So, it's a right.
Yeah, because that's exactly what the founders were thinking about when they were coming up with that, right?
Exactly. Of course, they're thinking long term there, Robert. It's like one day people are going to want to kill their babies, and so we have to make sure that they're able to.
And it's like when it comes to any sort of utilizing scripture, it's like, well, with Pete Buttigieg, it's wildly out of context what he's saying, and like what if you just look at those words, you maybe could sort of kind of take that out of that, but that's not the message that was being presented in that verse. And outside of that, like there's many other times where it's showing that this type of activity is very evil. I mean, you look at it in Exodus and, in the beginning of the Gospels where you had the Pharaoh and King Herod trying to kill all, babies under 2, because there was no like kind of medical vacuum procedure like they have for, this like they do for abortion now. So they were just killing anyone under like any male child under a certain age.
Yeah, within approximate age range, because because especially for like the example of Herod, these the wise men, they were traveling, and it didn't say like how long they were traveling, but presumably they were coming from a very far off land, and who knows how long Mary and Joseph were actually in at that manger.
Right.
At the most it could have been just like because because of the census, who knows, they could have been there for a month. So Jesus could have been Jesus could have been a month old at the time of the wise men's arrival. So Herod was just kind of covering his bases when he was like, okay, all babies from newborns to 2 years old, I'm covering my bases.
Yeah, and no one was, and in those stories, it wasn't like, woo, go Pharaoh. It's like it wasn't whoever was writing, wasn't saying about how it was, a good and just thing that this was happening. It was showing that it's a horrible evil that was being introduced.
Right.
And it's just that, and it's like, and this is where, like, it's like, oh, the things inside the mother's womb, it's not a they keep talking about, oh, it's not an actual person, it's not a not all this other stuff. It's like, and it's just a way to, it's like, oh, it's it's just a it's like getting your your wisdom tooth removed or something like that. It's something big, and that is one of the big tactics of the left, that they just manipulate and change language so that everything kind of sounds neat and tidy and fits into their narrative. And it's pretty horrific. And even now, like with because I think we're starting to make a little bit of ground in defunding Planned Parenthood, because there was that new thing where they were given an ultimatum where it's like, okay, you can take this money from this Title X program, but you can't as long as, like, you're not talking about, like, only giving abortions, which is essentially all they do.
Right.
But instead of doing that, they decided to opt out. I mean, they're only losing out on $60 million, but damn, at least it's a start. It's the biggest dent I've seen taken out of them in recent memory. Right,
and if they truly are just about providing health care for women and stuff, like, then what is the big deal if you just can't put it towards abortion? Why not? You guys constantly say, oh, we do more pap smears, or we do more breast cancer screenings, or what have you. It's like, okay, then what's the problem?
Yeah,
we're just saying that we're just saying, don't, you're the ones who are saying that you're not all, that you're not just abortions. So what's the problem?
Yeah, and well, that's the them kind of opting out of that money, so is one admission. And even now, like, some of the new, like, leadership on there is like, yeah, we just do abortions. That's what we make our money off of.
Right. I mean, there was
openly admitting.
Was it that one doctor lady? She was like the head, and like they made, and like she took like a more like centrist or nuanced view, and they made her step down.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, well, like,
So,
yeah, so tell me again how you're not just abortions, but then you're freaking out because the government says like, yeah, we don't really want to fund abortions. So you can have the money as long as it's not going towards abortions.
and here the thing is with all of this, and me taking or having this mindset about all this stuff. Obviously, I think it's an evil.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, I don't necessarily always feel bad for anyone who has gone through this, gone to Planned Parenthood, all this stuff, because I think there's a lot of people who have gone there thinking that they're going to get some sort of medical care, and they get kind of manipulated or lied to, or even almost forced into. Oh well, no, you should just get the abortion. It's the right thing to do, and a lot of these people are they're really scared because they don't it's like they don't know where to go, they know what to do, and it's like the parents aren't necessarily always there with them. And so yeah, it's kind of a scary time. So you have people who are truly evil that are manipulating and lying to them. And even some of the people that have volunteered or worked at these places have kind of been lied to, and and it's when they finally that veil gets uncovered that it's like, I can't stay here anymore, I don't believe in this. It's like, I thought this is about caring for like women's health, I was all for that, but if this is all we're gonna do, like I can't do that. And it's just but what bugs me is just that there are people that they know exactly what they're doing, they are profiting off of it, and then you have a whole a media and a political party that they are 100% all in and like trying to push that narrative. Because they always talk about how like, oh, all these Republicans, they're getting bought off by the NRA and stuff like that. It's like, well, not really, for one, but you have clearly a program like Planned Parenthood who, they're getting a lot of money off the government, but they're also probably utilizing that money for some of their political campaigns. I wouldn't be
right. I mean, because
whatsoever.
What is it? Because they always put up that paltry number of, the NRA, gave like $4 million in donations to, certain, in like, and this is in total. It's like in total they gave $4 million away to like, different, political either candidates or like, or right or conservative leaning causes. Like $4 million, big whoop. When you hear about Planned Parenthood, giving to, Democratic, Democratic candidates and things like that, like upwards of like $10 million and such.
Yeah, it's over double.
Yeah. So it's like, why? It's like, why? So why? I mean, not to go too off track here, but like even San Francisco tried to designate the NRA as a terrorist organization.
Yeah,
even though that's completely unconstitutional.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, so then that's funny then. So then if they're able to get away with that, then that does that mean that we get to label Planned Parenthood as a terrorist organization?
You should, under those,
right? Under those rules, I mean, if we're just holding them to their own standards. That's all we're not. We're not trying to do like a bait and switch here. We're just holding them to their own standards. And so, by their standards, we could then classify Planned Parenthood as a terrorist organization.
Yeah. Who's killed a fuckload of more people than the NRA has.
Right. Right, and even because the CDC, think however you want, but I'd be really hard pressed to designate the CDC as some conservative right wing organization. But the CDC numbers put defensive use of guns at either 500,000 to 3 million cases. Which is way more than the number that they always put up about gun violence or whatever, of 30 million, and of course 2/3 of those are suicides.
Yeah, that's the other thing they always kind of conveniently leave out.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I mean, kind of tying back into what you were saying and how this shouldn't be like that big of a surprise that Peter Butt over there from Bend Over is misconstruing a Bible verse, but in the grand scheme of things, he's actually doing harm to Christianity, which he supposedly is a disciple of Christ. I have my reservations.
I mean, like I said, I can't make that judgment, but the fruits that are coming from him doesn't look too good.
Yeah, they look rotten.
Yeah, but this is where this is what my point is. Mentioning all this stuff, it's because there is all this manipulation, misdirection, misuse, abuse of scripture, and is Pete Buttigieg the first person to do that? No. It's been done on many occasions, and the problem is because, especially as Christians, like I can't, obviously I can't speak for someone who is not. I'm just speaking to people who are Christians or would call themselves Christians. And it's like we got to get smarter. We have to study our Bibles. We have to actually, we have to wrestle with the tough sayings. We have to ask questions and constantly, be praying about this stuff. Becoming defenders of the faith. And at the very least, like we might have theological disagreements, sure, but at the end of the day, it's like there's in Peter's epistle, he talks about like we have to have an answer to why we have the hope that we do in Christ. It's like
right.
We have
to
know
always have a defense.
But it's not even like, I don't even think it's just for that. It's like, why do you, I hold that to everything. Like, why do you believe or think about certain things in the way that you do? But obviously it ultimately comes down to biblically, like, what do you think about this? Why are you a Christian? Why do you go to church on Sunday? Why do you have this theological belief? And there's so many people out there that, I mean, it's like, I'm not putting it on like the onus is on us, not like a church or like a pastor, because some people, like, they're the only Bible that they get is Sunday morning, which is not enough, and it shouldn't be completely. While your pastors and teachers at church, like, they're an important part and they have a strong responsibility. It can't only be them. Like, at some point, it has to be you doing the work too.
Right. I mean, eventually the training wheels have to come off.
Right. And by that, it's when you get more knowledgeable, you can hold your leaders to account. And if they are saying something unbiblical, you have to do something. You'll at least, you're like, wait, that doesn't sound right. And maybe like it's something that's done unintentionally, and that's how you we keep each other in check, we keep each other accountable, and it's how the church stays strong, how Christians stay strong. But that's not what's happening right now. And our next, the next story we talk about, we're going to see, kind of a example of like, how that's working. It's people not keeping each other accountable.
Exactly.
But
Right.
This is a huge passion that I have, that like, because I teach about this stuff. The students that I talk to on a nearly weekly basis, it's I'm telling them, it's like, listen, like, I'm gonna do the best I can, but ultimately, like, you guys have to, like, you have to want this. You have to be able to share why you have the belief that you do. Especially going off into college and going off in the world, like, there's so many different ideologies and falsehood and evil, and it's like, and I'm not saying that that's the only thing the world has to offer, but if you don't have something that you can hold on to, that you can anchor yourself to, you're gonna just be a boat that's just drifting off to nowhere, and you might never find your way back. And so that's why I'm always like, if you end up hating me at the end, that's fine, but if you can state why you're a believer in Christ and that you're still a Christian, then I've done my job.
All right, you've done the job of a teacher, and I mean, I completely understand that, because because I used to teach back in the day, and I've had my fair share of students, and some are still strongly in the faith, and some are kind of middle of the road, and some have fallen away. But
Yeah.
I did the best that I could, and I think I prepared. I tried to prepare them as best as I was capable of doing at the time, and it's ultimately after so many years, it's no longer on me. It's their duty to either take up the baton or not.
Right. And yeah, I mean, it's I'm still encouraged. Like, I see some of my students who've grown up, and like, they're still pretty faithful, to God and all that stuff, and that's pretty, like, I feel really good about that. And then there's a few that have kind of gone a different direction, and that it's like, I still pray for them, I still care about them, but
Right.
I may have not done enough, or I got to them too late. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, speaking of bad teachers or leaders, recently, prominent pastor from what was it? Oops. I think is Harvest Christian Fellowship. It's kind of a mega church here in Southern California. They have two, I think, really like big campuses. One in Riverside and the other in Irvine. But one of the pastors there, by name is Jared Wilson, recently committed suicide, and he was someone who was very outspoken about mental health, and even he confessed that he too had or he too suffers from depression or anxiety and suicidal thoughts, and he even created a charity. What was it called? Right. It's called Anthem of Hope. It was dedicated to amplifying hope for those battling brokenness, depression, anxiety, self-harm, addiction, and suicide. That's what it was. But it was his suicide comes mostly by surprise. I believe from I think the general Christian community at large, and even maybe some of people that are close to him, or at least it seems that way, because a lot of people who were close to him, were completely taken aback by his death. Even his wife sharing images of him like happily, playing with their children, the day before, he killed himself. And it's just, I don't want, I don't know whether or not, he was judged, for that last moment. I know the founder of, what was it? Yeah, what was that church name? Harvest Christian Fellowship. Greg Laurie. I know he doesn't believe that God will judge Jared Wilson for that last act, that last moment of his life. And I sincerely pray that that God doesn't. I pray that he doesn't he doesn't get punished for one moment of weakness.
Yeah, I would.
I truly pray. I truly pray for that. Because he's someone who was trying to do good, but ultimately failed. But I think,
and in this case, I don't really doubt his Christian faith. I don't, as far as like I can tell, I don't see any reason to believe that he wasn't a Christian, but
right. But I think that's as much sympathy as I'm capable of giving to him. At this point, because because here he was a man that who was supposed to he was a man seemingly called to lead others, and yet he went against his words is what I'm trying to get at, because just before he died, let me see if I can bring up the text or the tweet. Right. Okay. Here it is. Yeah. Just before he killed himself, he put out this tweet saying, loving Jesus doesn't cure suicidal thoughts. Loving Jesus doesn't always cure depression. Loving Jesus doesn't always cure PTSD. Loving Jesus doesn't always cure anxiety. But that doesn't mean Jesus doesn't offer us companionship and comfort. He always does.
Here's where I disagree with that. Is like, because while I don't think that everyone is like healed of things always right away by becoming a Christian, like you still have, like the up to that point, like there's been consequences for certain decisions you made that you still have to live through, even after you become a Christian. But these things, I think eventually, like they might not be healed right away. You might have to do a lot of wrestling and working on stuff, but they do get healed. It's eventually they get
Right.
healed. So I don't think, like, to me, that's where it's like I agree to a point, but he didn't go far enough on his points there. It's all those things that whatever it is that you might be struggling with. Like I said, it takes time, and you have to lean on God for that.
Right, and I think what the point, the missing part of that tweet is that even if God doesn't even though God doesn't do a miraculous healing, that doesn't mean you won't be healed.
Right.
I think that's the component that is missing from that tweet. Because he's basically saying like, oh, just because you have Jesus in your life doesn't mean you're going to be cured of all these things. Like that, you're not preaching hope. You're preaching despair. You're saying I have the greatest power force in the universe, and yet I can't get. But it's no use against these things. That's what he's saying.
You're giving power to You're giving power to something that doesn't that shouldn't be given that much power, because then you're making that a god.
Right. Exactly. And and I'm and it really, and then when I saw that tweet, it really pissed me off. And then what really pissed me off was because I did because I was away for the weekend when news came of his suicide, so I really didn't get a chance to do any research. But I did do some research, and I found a sermon he gave, and it was titled "No Mess is Too Messy." And it was kind of like the standard almost revival night kind of sermon where he's like there's nothing that you've done in your past, nothing that you do in your present, nothing that you are suffering from right now that Jesus can't overcome or cover with his grace and restore you. Right, that was the message of that sermon, and that sermon was 2 years ago, and then flash forward to just last week, and just before he killed himself, he puts out that tweet, just with nothing but despair. It's like, oh, like you could have Jesus, Jesus can be with you all the time, but you're not going to be cured of any of these things. It's like, no, it's like that. It's just like it really pisses me off. It really pisses me off, and and again, I really hope that he is not God does not judge him harshly for that last moment of his life. I truly do pray for that, but again, that's the only sympathy that he gets from me, because
oh no, I'm sorry. Finish what you were saying, Andy.
Oh no, I was just saying because him putting that out before he dies does the reputation of the church dirty. It or weakens the position of the church. It definitely does definitely harms the general church community. And it's just another thing that it's just another around that critics can use against more mature rooted believers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is because we've talked about when with suicides happen, it leaves such a black hole that okay, yeah, you're done, your problems might be over essentially, but he had a wife, several kids.
Well, two kids. And like now they have to live. Now they have to live in this world without a father.
Right, and you have an entire church, a mega church. So that's probably a couple thousand people
at least.
Now, yeah, I mean, it's not like the church isn't it's pastor per se, but it's all of them together. But that leaves such a huge black hole in that church, and with the mega church, there's probably some people who are kind of maybe on the fence, and they're kind of well, he preached about all this stuff, but then he ended up killing himself. So I guess I'm just gonna pack up my bags and go home. And who knows? Maybe half that church ends up walking away from the faith because of that. Or instead of committing to being a Christian.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I hate that show, 13 Reasons Why. It's funny because I think I've shared this story, but I remember talking to a friend. I was talking to and I was telling her about about the podcast and what we do, and I said that I told her that we've done like reviews of like movies and TV shows, and and then she asked me like, oh, what shows, and so I said, well, the only one we really, the only series that we've really done was 13 Reasons Why. And she asked me about my opinion on it, and I was honest with her. I said I absolutely hated that show because of the message that it portrayed about if you're treated horribly, then you can you can go out with a bang, and you could basically cause a whirlwind. You could leave a whirlwind in your wake, and it's like, and that's like the ultimate revenge payback against these people. And she was actually very surprised that I said that, because everyone else that she knows or talked to has given it glowing reviews.
That must have been pretty shocking to the system. It's like
yeah, no, exactly, because she said like all of her friends and most people that she talked to or has asked or who has watched it, they've all given it glowing reviews. Said like, oh, so great, and blah 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 blah, and it's like it's an important message, blah blah. And I come in and I come in like with a sledgehammer, and it's like it sucked, it was garbage. The messaging is horrible.
Here's where because here's where I think had they had what's her face not used because yeah, she killed herself, but she had a plan. That her point was to get she wanted revenge on all these people. Giving making those tapes was really fucked up.
Yeah.
Because not only because all these people were connected to her and they were friends with her in some way,
mm-hmm.
but so her death already it hits them pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
But then you pull out these goddamn tapes, that's really
right, because it's saying it's like this is how you contributed to my suicide.
You're part of
you
it.
Piece of shit. It's like, and again, I've said this before, and the whole reason, the what is it? The thing that puts her over the top in her deciding to kill herself was the counselor not trying to stop her. Yeah, at least in the first season.
Yeah.
In the first season, and it's like this guy is overworked, underpaid. He has hundreds of other students, that he has to kind of keep track of or kind of monitor, and she goes in there and gives him very little to act upon.
And he was like, if there's something going on, you have to tell me what's going on.
Exactly.
I can't. What you're giving me, I can't help you with. There's no. At that point, you need to give details. So because there's certain things that he's that he's wanting to hear from her, so he can actually act. Because he did care, but he didn't have any interest to go on, and that guy was clearly hurt by it because he felt, even though it really wasn't his fault, he felt responsible.
Right, exactly, and especially because that counselor was the last tape.
Yeah.
He was the last tape, and it's this is basically saying it's your fault. You had the chance to stop this, but you didn't pursue enough. You didn't probe enough. It's like, bitch, you didn't say the words, all right? You didn't say the words that that guy raped me. This girl, whatever, or you didn't say the words. And I mean, and you can say that I'm victim blaming, or it's like, oh, how would you understand the trauma of being raped? It's like,
that's not the point. That's not what we're talking about.
Exactly.
If there was no tapes, I could kind of see why. Okay, maybe she did, kind of, but she went out with a plan. It's like she went out with a giant bang.
Exactly. Right. As soon as she left the counselor's office, she had the tape player going, the recorder, and then she was waiting outside of his office. I was like, he's not coming. He's not coming. It's like, he's still not coming. Like after she kind of hinted at something, that something happened to her that was so so heinous that she couldn't talk about it. But it's like she was hoping that but it's like you didn't give him anything. And you were just waiting for him, for him to come and chase you down and stop you and say, no, we're going to get to the bottom of this. And it's like, but you didn't give him enough to act.
I've heard. I haven't seen the third season, but I heard they really jumped the shark on this one.
I saw the promotional trailer or teaser or whatever, and it's like, I mean, as much as they're trying to copy the CW, they went full CW.
Yeah. It's like, do I want to torture myself for a couple of hours, a few hours?
And we're not doing the third season. All right, fuck that. I'm putting my foot down. We're not doing the third. We're not doing the third season. All right, we are not doing the third season. No, fuck you, dude. Fuck you.
Well, we already felt when we did kind of do our semi review of season 2. I mean, it's like they turned that one character who was, and then he was actually a little bit pervy, but he was kind of normal. But then they turned him into some weird autistic Manchurian candidate that.
Yeah.
It's like, why did you change his character? At least because I actually was I kind of wanted to see what was going to happen, and then they completely just screwed that. Oh god, that was all right. That was it for me. You ruined that character.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just beyond the horrible messaging, it was just a shit show. It was really a shit show. Okay, especially and then and they just took it down another peg in season 2 because they made what's that the magical minority guy,
Tony.
Yeah, Tony. And they gave him anger issues and even though before he was kind of this cool-headed kind of spirit guide sort of figure in the show.
Yeah, and the first season, he knew about the tapes, but yeah, he didn't do anything about it either. It's
exactly, yeah. So it's every one of these people failed her, and she's like, "You guys fucked me over so bad, I'm gonna fuck you guys over." And you're saying that's and people are saying that's such a great show, and it's so progressive, or it's so it's so game changing. It's go fuck yourselves.
It's really hitting home on mental health issues and stuff. It's no, it's not really.
No, it's not at all.
It's kind of it kind of shows the point. And listen, I'm not blaming any people for having mental health issues, having anxiety. They've gone through trauma. I'm not making fun of you, but it does show some of the stuff. But to me, it shows the selfishness of suicide. That it's almost glorifying the selfishness. It's my truth. It's only my thing to share. It's well, it's do you want to get help, or do you want to hold on?
Yeah, or you just want to constantly be the victim.
I mean, we tend to, as humans, we tend to make things. We have a a worshipful mindset,
mm-hmm.
but a lot of times we end up choosing to worship the wrong thing, and
right,
I think a lot of times people kind of worship this victim kind of feeling sorry for themselves attitude.
Right, because the thing that we should be worshiping is outside of ourselves, not within ourselves.
Right.
And I think that's the thing. That's the thing that that the devil was always trying to get after. It's like, oh, like you deserve this, or he's like this shouldn't have happened to you. So you have to like make everyone else feel as bad as you do. So make these tapes and then kill yourself, and then they'll learn.
Yeah, it's just like I said, suicide destroys so many lives with the
Right?
people
Yeah,
that
it's not just the person that dies; it's everyone else around them.
And I say this from personal experience because my uncle, it's going on about 30 years or so now, who he committed suicide, and no one in my family talks about it anymore. Like it's this dark. It's still to this day a huge black hole in my mom's side, my mom's family, and it's just I can't get any answers. Can't I and it's but you can see the pain, and like people just like don't want to talk about it. It's just kind of and I don't know. Maybe that's for the best because I mean eventually that black hole will disappear at some point. But I mean even 30 years later you still see the pain like it just happened the other like yesterday. And yeah, and when people are not, for in my mindset, like if I wasn't a Christian, yeah, you know what? Honestly, I don't really have a whole lot of hope in a lot of things. But the fact that I am a Christian gives me a ton of hope because I know that even if I lost everything, I was living on the streets, all that stuff, I still have my faith, and that's honestly is enough.
The words straight out of my mouth.
And
Yeah,
the fact
that's and that's the lie of this world where it's like there's nothing else after this. It's this here and now is all that matters. So you have to accumulate wealth. You need to you need to accumulate things because there's nothing else. There's nothing else after this. So so you have to care about this. You have to make this, you have to make everything, in this world, the most important thing.
I mean, yeah, we had in the past couple of months, we've had a couple of prominent Christian leaders kind of quote unquote leave the faith, which has its own scars. This to me is I think is the worst of the three of them because I think this gives people like the kind of that message is like, well, even this guy who was, this pastor and, did all this other stuff, he killed himself. So, me as a Christian, what what hope do I have? And and like I said, it's probably going to destroy that church. I'll be, it maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it's going to leave a huge impact. It's not going to ever be the same.
Yeah, I mean, I pray that that it doesn't. I mean, as much as I'm not terribly big fan of mega churches. If they're if they're gospel centered, Jesus, gospel, and Jesus centered, and they're doing good works in His name, then I hope that something like this doesn't derail them. I really pray that.
But even worse is like you had a wife and two and several kids, like, and now they have no dad, no husband to
no provider, no protector.
Exactly, and it's just a shame. I think honestly this is worse than like the other two, just because I think this leaves a huge, like a more damaging scar.
Word.
Because like I said, it leaves you that message that's like, oh, even even God, with all his power, can't save you or protect you or heal you from these afflictions. And like I said, you make the afflictions, a god unto themselves almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. I think, well, that's all I had to say about the matter.
That's all I had to say, too.
All right. So, yeah, let's get out of this, heavy subject and onto something a little bit lighter. I mean, even though it does...
we're going to talk about another crazy person. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you might make the argument of... is it 3? Maybe up to 3 crazy people?
Yes, I would say so.
I mean, yeah, maybe 3 crazy people, but yeah. So let's get into the movie review. And of course, I mentioned at the top of the show, but again, the movie that we watched was Sunset Boulevard. Came out in 1950s, or it came out in the year 1950. Let me just give you a quick synopsis of the movie. Yes, an aging silent film queen refuses to accept that her stardom has ended. She hires a young screenwriter to help set up her movie comeback. The screenwriter believes he can manipulate her, but he soon finds out that he is wrong. The screenwriter ambivalence about their relationship and her unwillingness to let go leads to a situation of violence, madness, and death.
Yeah, that's a good synopsis. Well, what do you think of the movie, Andy?
Oh, I liked it. I really liked it. It's again, I was kind of alluding to something in the beginning, and a lot of people may not be familiar with the title of this film, but you're at least familiar. You should be at least familiar with one scene in this movie, and it comes at the end when what is it? The main character, the aging
with Norma Everett.
Yeah, Norma Desmond. Yeah.
Norma Desmond, thank you.
Norma Desmond, yeah, she kind of finally has her mental break, and she thinks that the police and are all around her, and she thinks that that they're filming her movie, and then she utters the famous lines like I'm ready for my close up, Mr. DeVille.
Yeah, that was one of the I had forgotten that this was the movie where that line came from. So it was kind of like a shock. It's like, oh, that's right, that's where this comes from.
Yeah, exactly. And Cecil B. DeMille, he actually makes a cameo in this movie as himself. So
yeah, because this was filmed by him.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, but it was yeah, because you had so the main character, what's his name?
Joe Gillis.
Yeah.
Joe Gillis, played by William Holden.
Yeah, he because he's kind of he's a failing screenwriter essentially. He's kind of not really. It's kind of on his last legs in Hollywood.
Right.
None of his stuff is getting sold.
Right. And he's got repo men after him for his car and.
So he's kind of doing some shady stuff, and he ends up. I think he blew out a tire while he was escaping them, and he ended up pulling into this garage to what looked like an abandoned house or abandoned mansion. And it turns out this is where he finds Norma Desmond and her weird butler.
Yeah. Max von Mayerling?
Yeah, something crazy like that. But yeah, like Max was the guy.
Yeah, I think
And
I would say think Uncle Fester crossed with Frankenstein.
yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah,
It's like Igor meets. It's like Igor meets Uncle Fester a little bit. Yeah.
there. Yeah, that's another good one. Yeah.
So obviously so he's there, and then she ends up because I think she mistook him initially for somebody else that like she had hired.
Right. Yeah, she confused him for the Undertaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, because apparently her pet chimpanzee died, but by the look of the chimpanzee's body, it's been dead for a while. It looked kind of like emaciated.
Yeah. So it had been in there a while.
Yeah.
And so you have that problem. So and then she ends up kind of like, what's I'm trying to think of the movie where I think it has Kathy Bates in it, where she like kidnaps that book writer.
That's Misery.
Misery, yeah. This reminded me a little bit like Misery in a sense, where like because she kind of essentially like kidnaps him and like keeps him in that house. Like cause she has Max bring all his stuff over from his apartment and like essentially moves him into that house.
Right. Yeah, because she finds out that he's a screenwriter, and is like, oh, well, I've been working on this. I've been working on this screenplay. For my what was it? Or how she say it? Her return, not a comeback, but a return.
Right.
And so like an insane person, she has her manservant go to his apartment and collect all his things, and then move him into like the upper room over the garage, and just slowly. It's almost like a cult or what is it? Or just kind of like a very manipulative kind of person, where they just slowly do like little things um, to bring them into like into that person's lives until like they're basically trapped. So it's like first like, oh yeah, why go all the way back to your place if you're just gonna work here? You just move in. You could have the room above the garage. It's like, and then it rains, and then there's a leak, and it's like, oh no, this won't do. So I have all these bedrooms. Just come in and take one of those rooms. And slowly but surely, like she brings him in, and you know living in the house, and then buys him clothes and all these little trinkets here and there.
I'll say she must have had a shit ton of money because how she'd been out of the movies for so long, yet was able to still buy these extremely extravagant items and stuff. Like,
and she was able to pay for the kind of rest because initially when what is it, Joe Gillis, the main character, he happens upon her mansion. It looks pretty worn down and dilapidated and not really well taken care of. And then in the course of like a few months, when I guess the weather got warmer, she was able to restore her pool.
Yeah, so she had a lot of money, like that was just hanging around, and she was still fairly famous because everyone kind of recognized her.
Right. Yeah.
But
unless she was like still getting like residuals, or I don't know how like film and TV worked back then, but I don't know, like maybe a few TV stations would play her stuff, and maybe she got residuals. I don't know, or maybe she came from money.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I think we're led to assume that it's like she made so much money from
she was such a huge movie star back in her heyday that she just has globs and globs of money.
Yeah. It pretty much a nearly limitless amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
But so yeah, it's weird. Like yeah, it's kind of this weird. Everyone's kind of manipulating one another in this because she starts to fall for him, and that's kind of like why she's keeping him trying to draw him in closer and closer. And he's
Right.
like at this point, like now he's kind of dependent on her, and so he kind of like gives into it, I think.
Yeah, he becomes a kept man. You know.
Yeah.
Kind of the reverse of the reverse positions of a May December relationship, but it's like the woman is the one with the money, and she has like a young lover who she takes care of or supports. But I mean, even that situation begins like grate on him because he's like, oh, I'm a man, I'm supposed to be the one, who's supposed to, who should be taking care of people, the woman, and blah 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 blah. And so it's the slow boil is what it is. It's the frog that slowly gets boiled over time.
Yeah, exactly. And it just, yeah, it was kind of and then you have Max, who come to find out obviously he's been with her for a long time, and kind of we find out later on that Norma is kind of a weird. She has suicidal tendencies sometimes. So, like, there's no locks on any door. There's no like doorknobs or locks or anything like that. So she can't like hide away and like try to kill herself. And even further than that is there's certain things like that. Max has knowledge of things like that. Obviously she's thinking she's gonna make this big return to the movies, and come to find out it's like that's just not gonna happen. And when she thinks that like she's getting phone calls for certain things, it was actually for
from the
something
studio
else.
When after she submits her screenplay to different studios, one of the studios is calling her, and she thinks like, oh yeah, I told you they call. Of course they would call, but she's like, no, but we can't let on that we can't let on. We have to be like kind of like in a kind of in a power play. She's like, no, don't answer the phone because we can't be the ones to be answering the phone. We'll go to them, and and she thought that she was gonna leverage the studio into a better deal and make her movie, make her return. But it turns out it was just because they wanted to rent her car for a movie because she had a very exotic and eccentric car.
Right. And it was like, I think it was shortly after that we actually find out that that Max, the butler, was actually her first husband. And it's like, and
also a director.
Yeah, that was the other thing. And
right, and he said that he was the one that discovered her. And so, like, he feels like some responsibility for like her current predicament, and her and her loose grip on sanity.
Right, and it's like at that point, it's like, well, don't you think that like just lying to her, like you're just manipulating her, like you're not actually.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, because like by him like constantly shielding, her from reality, and like he's actually doing her harm as opposed to good.
Yeah, it's weird. Everyone's kind of like, it's seemingly innocent, all kind of all around. Like I think they're doing it for certain reasons. Like Norma, she I think really wanted to have that connection like with like a man again. She wanted to get back in the movies, and she felt that like Joe was kind of like a weight of both of those.
Mm-hmm.
You have Max, who is he feels responsible for Norma, yet obviously like is thinking by like shielding her and protecting her is making things, but is kind of helping her, but it's actually harming her. And then you have the main character Joe, who initially like, he's trying to get back, he wants to, kind of similar to Norma, wants to get into Hollywood, start making good screenplays again. And I don't know if he feels any sort of real feelings towards Norma. He may have, but
at a certain point where like those feelings might have vacillated, depending on what type of mood Norma was in.
Right. So, and I think like he for a time there, I think he did genuinely care, but he always kind of like waffled like between like himself and her, and it's just, I think
having genuine like feelings or emotions for Norma, and like what she can do for her or what she can do for him.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, it's also kind of a little bit like The Graduate going on there too between him and Norma.
A little bit, yeah. It's like Mrs. Desmond, I think you're trying to seduce me. Yeah. Oh man, what was I? I was gonna say something. Oh, yeah. And there was like that line, when he was, when Joe was, kind of feeling a little fed up, and Norma was doing like her beauty treatments and whatnot, and I think he delivered like one of the most, I think, memorable or iconic lines from this movie. I mean, other than I'm ready for my clothes, up, Mr. DeMille. There's nothing wrong with being, when he kind of like, in frustrations, like he's like, Norma, you gotta stop this. There's nothing wrong with being 50 unless you're trying to be 25.
Yeah, and I think because that was like one of those moments. Like I think he was, because he did genuinely care, that he's Well, it does sound cruel. It's like you're killing yourself for no reason.
Right.
It's and because he knew the truth that she was never going to get that film, and even to a point too, you had Cecil B. DeMille, who cared for her too, but it's like he didn't want to like go out there and specifically say like, yeah, we don't. It's not going to happen. Like it was kind of like the same thing. Like everyone's trying to kind of care for and like, not, I wouldn't say manipulate, but like they're trying to help each other in a lot of ways, but like it always goes south. Like it doesn't, the helping does a lot more hurt than it does.
Right. It's I mean, an alternate an alternate title for this movie could have been I don't know, like Good Intentions, or The Road to Hell, because because seemingly these are all like these people. If we were to view them as people who are generally trying to look out for the best interest of Norma Desmond's character, it's like all these people are just doing what they think is best for her. Like even Cecil B. DeMille, he's like he told the studio to not just to stop calling Norma Desmond about the car. We'll figure out something else, because he understands that it's cruel. It's just especially when he finds out why she's there, and then he puts the pieces together, and it's like, oh man, this is really cruel. Like he's like, yes, just like stop calling her. Don't we'll figure the car out some other way. But don't call Norma Desmond anymore. And it's like, and that was, I think, very, very paternal of him.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just Yeah, it's a crazy movie, man. Like and all the characters, all the acting was really good. They pulled off all these characters well. Like Norma, like really.
Gloria Swanson.
Yeah, Gloria Swanson knocked it out of the park.
Yeah,
I mean,
she owned that role.
Oh my god, yeah, she was great. I think she stole the show in my.
Absolutely, yeah. She chewed up that scenery. With the over the top gestures and looks and the kind of way the way she enunciated her words.
Yeah, and you see throughout the movie she goes from this really strong air of confidence, like she's the shit.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the descent into madness as the movie goes along, and it crescendos at the end with the famous line, "I'm ready for my close up, Mr. DeMille." I mean, just her facial acting, she looked like a fucking loon bag.
Yeah, she looked like a crazy person. She absolutely looked like a crazy person.
How crazy she looked.
Right. Yeah, 100%. She absolutely looked like a crazy person. I was sold. I was like, man, get this bitch to a padded room ASAP.
Yeah. But yeah, this is I don't know. I had never seen this movie before for some reason, and I thought it would be kind of a good one to review. I'm glad that we watched it. It's a top-notch film. It's great.
Absolutely great. Yeah, and I mean, just for myself, just knowing the context of the last line of the movie is great. Because I've always seen that clip, or I've seen homages of that clip, but I never understood what the context of that scene was until watching this movie. It's like, now I know.
Yeah, and that was kind of how the movie reviews got started. Anyways, it's kind of, we know all these tropes and lines from movies, yet there's so many we hadn't seen a lot of these movies that they're from. So yeah, it's kind of nice to go back and see where this originates from.
Right. Yeah, even you just jogged my memory just now. Last week when we did American Graffiti, and that scene where what's his face, Toad, is trying to get booze. I remembered where I've seen that scene before, and that I was in The Simpsons. The episode where they go to the beach, and then Homer's trying to buy illegal fireworks, and he's just asks for a whole bunch of random stuff. And he slyly tries to and illegal fireworks and some condoms.
Yeah, it's like exactly. Yeah, that's an American Graffiti trope.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was funny because because there's been certain movies where was a few weeks ago I watched Taxi Driver for the first time. Now here's the thing is but I know the movie because I know there's so many of the lines and famous aspects to that film that's I know the film before I ever actually watched it, but then watching it all within its context, kind of oh, okay, that's how that got started. Okay, that makes sense. And there's certain movies that are like that I think you could say oh, I know this movie even if you've never watched it, just because they're so iconic, so famous.
Right. Yeah, because I'm sure everyone's heard either the line oh, I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It smells like victory. Either that line or some variation of that line. But not know where it's from. By the by, that's from Apocalypse Now.
Because speaking of another crazy movie, crazy movie.
Yeah, but I'm sure. Yeah, because everyone has made either heard that line or has heard some sort of variation of that line as an homage or just like a copy. But yeah, it's like, but we're kind of doing some cinematic archaeology in a way.
Yeah, I think that's a great way of putting it, and I'm looking forward to finding out like more things.
I can't wait to watch a movie. It's like I know. It's like I saw that reference somewhere. It was like now I know where it came from.
And it's crazy because obviously everyone knows I'm a giant Simpsons fan,
Mm-hmm.
but going through and watching a lot of these movies, it's like, oh shit, I've seen this on The Simpsons 1,000 times. Like now I know. I thought it was funny, to begin with, but like now I'm seeing where they're getting a lot of their material from, and it's because they love these movies, so it's like they wanted to bring that out in the show, and it's great. So yeah, like you said, yeah, cinematic archaeology. I like that. That's a great way of putting it.
Okay, let's get into our rating. Do you want to start off?
Yeah, I'll start off. This is a 4.5 for me. It's for 1950. Like I actually thought that this could have been a movie from like 10 years after that. Like it didn't feel really dated or anything to me. I think the acting overall for especially the three main characters was out of the park. Like with Gloria Swanson stealing the show.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
And yeah, I kind of like seeing that descent into madness that Norma takes in the movie, and just it's great, man. This is a must watch. I'm probably gonna watch it again. Not too far in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a 4.5 for me.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna give this a 4, but I think I'm more inclined to agree with you and give it a 4.5. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, because this movie was great. It's, from black. Yeah, it's black and white and from a bygone era, but it's in a really weird way. It's still kind of relevant because nothing has really changed. We're still like youth obsessed, and women are I mean, nowadays women are literally putting penises on their faces to look younger.
Yeah.
So, and that scene where Norma Desmond's character is like going through like the regimen of the face mask and the massages and like the weird electrolysis. It's like nothing's really changed. I mean, for like the Hollywood starlet.
Right. Yeah. So it's it was going on back then. It's still going on today. Maybe with different in different ways, but it's right. Essentially like the same.
Exactly.
And and everyone's trying to get ahead and shield and protect one another, but it kind of works out in this same way where a lot of people just end up getting used and hurt and thrown to the side.
Right, and I think in a weird way, yeah, because I mean we didn't discuss this, but there's like kind of like a B plot where Joe is has this has interactions with this girl Betty Schaefer, who's a reader at the studio. That's someone who who takes like the submitted scripts and gives them the once over and kind of says like, oh, this one's garbage, this one's great, this one needs to be worked on a little bit more. She's like kind of like a gatekeeper in that sense.
Right.
But yeah, they have like this little slide story. The B plot is Joe's feeling smothered, so he goes and like has like these interactions with Betty, and slowly they kind of start falling for each other, and Joe has like this realization, like this Zen realization that he's in too deep, and his only way out is death, and so he knows that so that when he after he kind of he kind of has to break Betty's heart, and sends her away. He goes, he kind of goes, very Zen-like to his death, because he goes back to Norma and confronts her. It's like, yeah, I'm leaving. It's just this isn't working out anymore, and blah blah. And like she threatens to like shoot him. It's like, oh, don't think I'm not gonna shoot you, Joe. And it's like, he kind of has like this like, well, you got to do what you got to do. And she ends up killing him.
Yeah.
But it's like it's a very Zen kind of death, because he kind of just like he goes into it knowing fully well that he's gonna die.
Yep. Yeah, like I said, the acting all around was it was great. You see, and I love the story, love the characters. Great
Absolutely.
movie.
All right, well, that was our review of Sunset Boulevard. Both Robert and I give this a 4.5. It is a fantastic movie. Even though it was made in the 50s, still highly relevant. I think, especially like the Norma Desmond character, with actresses nowadays and their constant obsession with staying young and not aging gracefully, as they say.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely a movie. Highly recommended. So if you have a chance, check it out. All right, and yeah, so that will bring us to the end of the show. Thank you for joining us. I hope you were entertained. I had a good time. I'm sure Robert had a good time as well.
Oh, yeah, I always do.
Yeah, always. Not even a question. Don't forget to check out the library of other shows that we have. The Circle of Jerks main podcast, Nocturnal Transmissions, of course, and Robert's gaming channel, gaming show, Up by Up Down. Don't forget to follow us on our various social media accounts, Twitter at PodcastTOJ, and Instagram at Circle of Jerks Podcast. And with all that said, we thank you again, and we hope you join us again next week. Hopefully live, but we'll see.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. So, yeah, we'll see you then. And don't do anything I wouldn't.